Welcome to Building Programs, Building Brains, Bridges to STEM Learning for grades kindergarten through 8. This training is brought to you by BOSNet, Build the Out of School Time Network, and the UMass Boston College of Education and Human Development, with support from the Department of Early Education and Care in Massachusetts. And brain building is in progress. You'll see 4 logos on this slide. If you hover your mouse over each logo, you'll get a website that you can go to get more information about BOSNet, UMass Boston, brain building, or the Department of Early Education and Care. This is Interactive Presentation 6, Curriculum Design. Curriculum is a collection of activities or lessons or interactions that you plan to do with the children that has the goal of building key competency areas for the students. So again, thinking back to the various standards and best practices that we looked at, and especially those Massachusetts curriculum frameworks, there are competencies and skills that exist within those. And the idea behind curriculum is that it's multiple different lessons or activities that focus on achieving or strengthening specific goals or competency areas. A good curriculum will offer a variety of different ways for the children to experience learning and practicing those skills, and will span all different learning approaches or learning styles, so that all children have a chance to sort of be in their element and have their natural ways of connecting to that skill or that information. Good curriculum will also align to the best practices and standards that we looked at a little earlier in the training. Earlier in this course, we mentioned thematic curriculum and project-based learning, and we're going to be taking a little bit of a closer look at those two tools now. Thematic curriculum weaves together all of the different strands of the different standards and best practices and the different core elements of curriculum to make them into sort of a beautiful, connected whole. The idea behind thematic curriculum is that not only is it the bridge that holds all of these different standards and ideas and requirements together, but that it also builds engagement and interest in the children because they can get excited about the theme that you're exploring together. So it's really important to pick themes that the kids are interested in and care about. And it also builds linkages across learning, which is an idea that we'll explore more in a moment. So thematic curriculum, one of the benefits of it is that it takes a core set of ideas or concepts, and it allows the learners, the students, to connect and interact with those concepts across a broad span of different interactions, ideas, and approaches. The benefit of this is that if you learn about something from just one perspective, then you're getting a bunch of facts, a bunch of information, and that's good, it's important. But the more different ways that you interact with the same idea or set of ideas, the more three-dimensional and subtle and complex your understanding of that idea or set of ideas becomes, and you become more able to take it apart and put it back together in different ways and to apply concepts that you learned within that element of your expertise and take those concepts to other elements of the world and reapply them. So let's take the example of gardening. Let's imagine that a teacher is in a group with kids and teaches them some basic ideas about gardening and growing plants. This is what plants are, this is what they need in order to live, this is what a garden is, this is why we have gardens. That's great, and it's very valuable, but the next thing that teacher might do is get a bunch of garden tools and say, everybody, thinking about what we've learned so far about gardening, imagine what these tools are for. Make up uses for them and invent new tools that you think would be useful for gardening. So this is a really fun, imaginative project. She might even give them craft supplies like toothpicks and straws and marshmallows and tape and paper that they can use to craft in 3 dimensions models of their own imaginary gardening tools. So now they have a whole other relationship to the idea of gardening. Now imagine that the teacher finds an opportunity to take the kids out and let them actually plant things in a garden, or maybe has a windowsill garden that she creates in the classroom. So the kids are now having a hands-on experience of seeing some of the things that they've learned about and trying out some of the tools that they've explored. Now they're having sort of their own physical experience of the learning. So there's a whole other layer occurring for them now. Then let's imagine that the teacher says, okay, let's learn more about what things we grow in the garden. And she gets different things, flowers and plants and fruits, and maybe even parts of plants like stems and roots. And she has a series of sensory tables where the kids can reach into a paper bag and feel things. They can sniff them, they can touch them. At some tables, maybe they can even taste them. And they can see what they could learn about these different objects by using their different senses, and what they can imagine or conclude about them by using their senses. Next, let's imagine she has a conversation with them about all of the different ways that gardening can exist in the world, all the different ways that it's useful in the world, from gardens feeding into ecosystems like the caterpillar pictured here eating the leaf and turning into a butterfly, and then what butterflies are good for and how they spread pollen, and how the pollen in turn helps the garden to be healthier, all the way up to growing food to feed large quantities of people, or even gardens that are there just to bring pleasure or joy. And finally, she plans a field trip to a public garden like the Boston Common, where the kids get to run and play and enjoy the value of a public garden, and that gives them yet another way of relating. So now their ideas about gardening have been spread across so many different types of experiences that the ownership of those concepts is much deeper and much more valuable. And that's the core idea behind thematic curriculum. So that's pretty neat. It's pretty exciting. It's pretty engaging and energizing as an idea. But of course, then the question is, how do you build this wonderful mystical thing that gives kids this three-dimensional magical ownership of the ideas that they're learning about? And there are a couple of really simple, concrete steps that really help that to occur. The first is to think about your program, think about your schedule, and think about the various different types of learning opportunities that you have. Now, most people will start by thinking about their activity blocks or their learning blocks that they have during their schedule. And if you're an after-school program and it's during the school year, you probably don't have a ton of time for that, because you probably have kids arriving earlier and other kids arriving later, and kids departing earlier and other kids departing later. So you probably have a fairly narrow time block that's your activity block or your learning block. But there are so many other opportunities in your program that oftentimes we think of as times that other stuff has to get accomplished, and we don't realize that the kids in the program are learning every second that they're there, and we should take advantage of those opportunities. So that includes snack time and homework time and any kind of free play that they have or clubs that they're in, and also time that's like exercise or outdoors or gym time. So think about all the different opportunities, and all of those opportunities are chances to apply your theme. Then you're going to choose the theme. Choose a time frame for the theme. A week is usually a pretty good time frame. For older kids, longer themes like a month or even a few months or the whole summer are better. And obviously the sophistication and depth with which you explore those themes should be more challenging as the kids get older. Once you've chosen your theme and the time frame for the theme and made sure that that's something that the kids are going to be excited about and that's going to be age appropriate for them, then review the curriculum frameworks for the ages of kids that you're working with, and choose specific learning goals that you feel like you could accomplish through that theme. And identify the standards that are associated with those learning goals that you want to make sure to try to incorporate. Take a quick review of the Universal Design for Learning so you can make sure that you're exposing kids to the different types of learning that apply to different learning styles and different learning needs. And then plan activities and games and snacks during snack time, and even ways of managing your homework time and your clubs and your free play that link back into that theme. And make sure that you're making connections in your lesson plans back to the curriculum frameworks. We'll look at an example or two of this in the course room later. Once you have your curriculum laid out and you have an idea of what you're going to be doing during the different blocks, there are some lesson blocks that are going to have lesson plans written for them, especially those sort of learning or enrichment blocks that you might have. So the lesson plans themselves are the sort of individual building blocks, the units that make up the curriculum. When you write out a lesson plan, some things are very important in order to make sure that it's a solid and useful lesson plan. The first is to have a good introduction. This sparks the interest in the activity, and it helps the kids to see your excitement and your enthusiasm for the activity. And a good introduction can be a question that you ask and don't answer that they learn about during the activity. It can be a problem that you don't give them the solution to and that they work on trying to solve during the activity. It could be an anecdote or a short little story that you tell them. It could be a fun factoid. It can be just about anything that's going to get them interested and engaged. Then you're going to need to identify what materials and supplies are needed in order to run the activity. That's the sort of nuts and bolts of the thing. And the directions for the children, and make sure that the directions are multimodal. What that means is you're not just telling them the directions, and you're not just handing out a sheet with directions. You're making sure that you're showing and telling and giving a visual. So the kids can see an example that you're holding up or demonstrating with your own body. They can hear you talking about it, and they can look at something like written instructions or a picture so that they have more different ways of relating, and that's going to help build comprehension in your directions. Next, you're going to go ahead and do it. Run the activity, adapt as needs arise within the kids or as challenges or barriers arise. And then last, and this is so important, I can't emphasize enough how important this is, make sure that after the activity ends, you've left time to follow up and have a conversation or a journaling experience or draw what they learned or something that helps them make a firm connection to the fact that they learned something new, because that's what's going to let them hang on to that new information or that new experience that they had just by drawing about it or talking about it or writing about it. They're going to take ownership of it. And make sure that when you are writing your lesson plans out, you are writing right on there what the curriculum framework alignment is and what theme you're using the lesson plan for, because that will allow you to reuse your thematic curriculum and your lesson plans in future years. Project-based learning dovetails really nicely into thematic curriculum. The project-based learning that you choose to do, the project-based learning activity, should be chosen after you've selected your theme, and it should link to the theme that you're doing, but it should also connect to interests or questions that the kids have raised. It could be a question from a previous theme or a previous activity or unit. It should be something that builds on skills that the kids already have, so making sure that it's sort of challenging and interesting to them, and it should have a variety of different ways that the kids can engage with different roles or different jobs. A good project-based learning project is going to be something that's hands-on, that the kids can feel like they're actually making something, trying something, being involved in something real and meaningful. It should be collaborative. It's not an independent project that one person does over in a corner all by themselves. It's either going to be small teams or one big huge team of the whole group together. It should be as child-directed as possible. So give the outline of what the project is and what they're going to try to accomplish, but let the kids try to figure out how to accomplish that as much as possible. Give them help if they ask for it, but if they're heading down a path that's not going to be effective, let them head down it for a bit and see if they figure out a better path. Let them explore and try. It should also connect to the interests of the kids who are in your group, so aligned to the being age appropriate for them, and also to what your particular group is interested in. It should have some kind of a concrete end product that they can talk about, tell about, see. It could be a play that they perform or a song that they write, a book that they make, an object that they build. It could even be, as in one example at the end of a thematic curriculum about heroes, a care package for soldiers overseas that the kids get to then send. But there should be some kind of meaningful concrete end product. And the project-based learning should be something that takes some time. It shouldn't be something you can do in one day or in one activity block. It should take multiple days or weeks or sometimes even months to complete. The next thing that's going to happen after you finish this presentation is you're going to look in the course room and you're going to see samples of thematic curriculum, that's the TC, with project-based learning component, that's the PBL, built right into them. So you're going to look at those, peruse them, see what you see, learn what you learn, and then we're going to ask you to put everything all together and apply what you'd learned and have an actual experience of applying all of this information. Okay, so let's check and see whether you learned what we were hoping to teach you in this presentation. True or false? Thematic curriculum and project-based learning help bring together standards and best practices and improve learning outcomes for children.